What happened to me goes far beyond political imprisonment. Social services held their roles in my detentions, but they also did this. This is an extract of court paperwork raised against me by my ex-partner. The message they mention on the 20th of April is me being upset about her stopping me from seeing my children. And I state that I want to raise court action, which is my right, and I do state for full custody, but that was out of anger. In the bigger picture, it's neither here nor there, but the social work department do state that they are recommending that no further contact takes place between me and my children as a consequence of my behaviour. That's actually a direct human rights breach, but they're suggesting I'm the one being controlling and coercive? But isn't this exactly what coercive and controlling looks like? As a result, I haven't seen my children in over a year, and it is court enforced. If social services believe I am unfit to be a father, they do have the powers to stop me. They do not need to be advising my ex-partner to do their dirty work. They should be using their powers and proper channels as they are designed to be used. Social services have also further fabricated some medical records to assist in reinforcing my ex-partner's case to stop me seeing my children. And both her solicitor and the child welfare officer both tried very hard to have these records produced, even though I'd been upfront about my medical history, and they shouldn't have had any knowledge that these extra notes existed. While I tried to defend myself against these mental health accusations, I attempted to produce this document. As you likely remember, it's full of absolute rubbish that was used to try and detain me under the Mental Health Act. And it does prove that the mental health allegations are just a ruse to cause me harm. And proving it removes the legitimacy of any mental health concerns, which is the only hurdle that is being used to stop me seeing my children. What it also does is proves that I've been targeted by the state in a manner which breaches my human rights. I highlighted it up in a PDF reader, redacted my WTF comments for obvious reasons, and then sent it to court. When it got to the other side, it looked like this. The document itself had vanished, but the highlighting remained. This happened to all documents that proved what the state was doing to me that I sent to the court. That's some next level cyber skills. To make matters worse, the newer notes, which had been fabricated, had now been redacted, so I couldn't get access to them. And when I received the subject access request back from social services, it looked like this. Just to be clear, these are their redactions, not mine. And I'm sure at this point you can believe me when I say that my own lawyer was corrupt. When it came to the logic that I could take my children away in my van and that there was plenty sleeping space for them, she said that I could borrow a van from work and the kids could sleep in that. So the state are actively making my life very, very difficult, especially when it comes to getting access to my children. But it doesn't stop there. They also make it difficult for me to get a human rights lawyer to fight back. They all just claim they're at maximum capacity. Notice they're not saying that I don't have a case. They're saying they can't fit me in. Must be all those immigration cases they've got. They're claiming they can't even wait and put me in later. And it doesn't stop there. When the state move to destroy your life, they do it entirely. I've lived in vans since they announced lockdown in 2020, and I love it. The freedom is unbelievable, and it's like a little one-bedroom flat that I can modify and move around. And I save an absolute fortune, with so much extra capability to take my kids anywhere in the country and to take pretty much any job. When my first van developed issues, I took it to Ford. There was a problem with the ABS sensor, which made a lot of dramatic changes to the van, but nothing unmanageable. My window regulator stopped working correctly, which caused issues with my window, but these are minor. Ford quoted me an extraordinary number to fix them, and I refused, because both of those things are quite easy for me to fix myself or to take it to a different garage which would quote me significantly less. However, the reason I took it to Ford was because it had developed an engine problem. So who better to take it to? They charged me £1,200 to fix the engine. So that should be it, right? Engine working okay again. I picked the van up and took it to my mum's house because I just went to go visit her. Parked it on the driveway. When my stepdad got back, he says, "You know your van's leaking oil?" And he was right, it was. So I got straight back on the phone to Ford and went, "Oi, You've not fixed it right, it's still leaking. And they wouldn't entertain me at all. So I went to Ford Customer Services, who told me I've got to pay for another Ford garage to investigate the issue before they will. There was a little bit of backwards and forwards, but eventually I took it to another Ford garage. They told me that basically my pipes had come off. Oil was squirting everywhere, and it looked like it had been caused by internal engine damage right in the areas where Ford had just been working. My van was now completely written off, and Ford was taking no accountability for it at all. They were saying things like diagnostics hadn't been done on the vehicle before the initial repair because it was too old and the computer wouldn't work on it. When it's a 12-plate van, what a ridiculous excuse. And just to prove it, here's diagnostics carried out by a third party. Are you telling me that this one-man band in his garage has more technical capability to diagnose Fords than Ford? Come on. And this is not an isolated incident. I replaced this van with a bigger, better van. That's the van I showed you in the images. I'm not going to show you the outside of it because it's currently being repaired so I can live in it again. However, just a few months before making this video, right before the event season started, which is my primary occupation, all of the oil was drained out of my engine and my low oil light was disabled. So I had no idea. And what happens to an engine when you run it without oil? Crunch, bye-bye engine. And just like that, that's my second home just written off in very questionable circumstances. And remember when they detained me in 2021 and tried to crush my van then? The police had trashed it. I went to go cook on my stove, and as I turned my gas bottle on, I could hear a hissing sound. I got my gas detector out to find where the leak was, and it was coming from inside the gas regulator itself. The gas regulator is a pressed unit. It cannot be opened, and it is one of the most highest regulated pieces of equipment on planet Earth. Generally speaking, they don't go wrong, especially when they're in police custody. Naturally, I just replaced the gas regulator, and everything was working again. If I hadn't have noticed it, one unsuspecting day when I would be making my egg sandwich in the morning, I'd have my gas on, cooking on my hob, and my van would fill up from the bottom with gas. When my van gets half full, it would overspill onto the hob and detonate. The explosion would have been huge. Quite coincidental when the state was trying to frame me as a crazy terrorist. That's not just them trying to kill me. That's also them willing to risk any of you who may have been near my van when the explosion happened. This is disgraceful. And when I attempted to hand the gas regulator over to police for forensics, they refused to investigate. And from what I can tell, they made no effort to document it at all, suggesting they knew all along. Is this really how Britain treats its veterans? And it's my understanding it's because I took an interest in politics and I was good at it. And the reality is, it's not just how they treat veterans who stand up to them. It's how they treat anybody who threatens to expose them. These next clips are taken from the victims of the child grooming gangs and their families and what they were exposed to. Take a look at this.
I speak to a lot of survivors all over the country. I speak to a lot of parents. They have no trust in the police or social services. Social services got me suspended from work for trying.
It was a paedophile ring. I did tell the social workers and the police, and basically I was told if you don't stop digging and, you know, rooting around for the evidence, that my child would suffer the consequences because he was in the care system voluntary. He got abused, and he, as an adult, then he went to the police, reported it, and sadly he died in the meantime.
She's just been repeatedly let down by authorities. Her records go missing. She gets gaslit to an extreme where you think, you know, they can't be making survivors feel like they've gone crazy. They know what happened to them. They know their records, that they reported things. There's the NHS records go.
I've got some of my son's records, not all of them, and I know that some's missing. They've said that they'll give them to the solicitor, but the solicitor mustn't show me. But that's my child. I should be able to see what they've done with him.
That big chunks of my care records were missing. I was a looked after child. There should have been a documentation for near enough every day that I was in care, whether it just be an acknowledgement of me going to school or waking up or anything that I did. But she found that there was months at a time where there was just not a single documentation.
One of the things that struck me about this scandal isn't just that it happened in the first place, that the abuse occurred, and it's not just that the authorities were negligent and didn't investigate properly. It's that they deliberately and intentionally covered up these crimes. And I think actually Teresa touched on this when you said the police officers actually told you to stop complaining. They told you to leave it alone. And they said your son would suffer consequences unless you just stayed quiet. And yeah, exactly. And I've heard that so many times. I've heard about parents getting arrested for complaining. A case of a senior police officer in a northern city, a superintendent who ordered a retired officer who was working for a charity at the time to stop investigating because he was worried about so-called community tensions. So they deliberately covered this up. It wasn't an accident, it wasn't just negligence, it was deliberate. So they
had to fight tooth and nail and expose people on the media just to get an investigation started.
The reason I'm showing you this is because it's relevant. The people involved in this scandal are police, social workers, doctors, and local council, just to highlight the ones that are mentioned here. And the abusers fit the pattern of behaviour I describe in my case. Since 2020, I've been threatened with all manner of things. I've been threatened with my secrets because these organisations have researched me. To be honest, I'm not afraid of my secrets, so it didn't deter me. They threatened me with, "We'll make sure you never see your children again. And even, at this rate, you won't see your grandchildren either." They've threatened to kill me, they've threatened to torture me, they've threatened to ensure that I'll never work again, and to ensure that a girl will never touch me again. They've threatened to section me multiple times, and they've even threatened to turn my children into sex slaves. How disgusting is that? This is real life, and there is no real support for a man like me, or anybody that falls on the wrong side of the abuse of these organisations. In my case, and in earlier parts, you can see that it also involves groups like the Department of Work and Pensions, and even private charities whose job it is to help victims. And as you can tell, it is an organised effort. And where there is organised effort, there is structure. The common denominator that I've found in these cases is one group known as the Freemasons. We never hear them discussed in the media, and these are one of the largest groups in the world, covering most of America, Europe, and Britain. They have also infiltrated pretty much every single aspect of government and authority. They mask themselves as a charity, but it is reported that many police officers are members of the Freemasons, as well as various social services, lawyers, doctors, judges, politicians, the same list that causes these issues, and it's all the high-ranked ones. They are just a huge collection of businesses that integrate people who are in various positions that they consider useful. Being a member comes with various rules, two of which are very important. They insist in secrecy. No one is allowed to reveal that they are a member. This allows them to continue to get away with whatever they want and never be tied to any of the acts directly. And the other is to always put your brothers first, even over the victims. That's why no one ever gets caught or investigates anybody. It's also why there's always a senior cop ready to shut down anything that might interfere with their practices. And it's why no journalists ever report on them or state when somebody is affiliated to them after they're in the news. The Paul Doyle situation in Liverpool is a great example of this, and explains why he was charged under Section 18 instead of Section 20, which will help him avoid justice. You can take a look at my other videos for information on that. But realistically speaking, if somebody was a member of the IRA, or of the Taliban, or of Antifa, or of any other organisation, when the media discusses things they've done, they would mention it. But whenever somebody's a member of the Freemasons, it's never mentioned. And it should be. That proves just how deep their roots go. I mean, we'd even hear about it if somebody was a member of Oxfam and did something nuts. The reality is, this is a huge network, and they are an international crime syndicate, and the fact we never hear about them just proves how powerful they are. They are the authority, and they destroy people's lives, including those victims you heard about earlier in the clips, and mine as well. They've made my life unbelievably difficult. But I'll continue. Originally, I was just doing it for you, but now it's about much more than that. It's about fighting for my own freedom, so that I can live a life without fear of the authorities being round the corner to sabotage it further. So thank you very much for watching, and anything you can do to support me would be greatly appreciated. And if anything should happen to me, or those I love, well, let's be honest, I just told you who did it.